Welcome aboard to the world's finest strike podcast with your host and author of the novel Deception Underway, Patrick Riley. The show where sea stories come to life, liberty adventures are relived, and the voices of sailors past and present are heard loud and clear. Named in honor of the USS Hewitt DD-966, the world's finest strike destroyer, this podcast is dedicated to the men and women who served at sea and the unforgettable moments that shaped their lives. Whether you're a salty veteran, a curious civilian, or just here for the ride, you're in the right place. Let's dive in.
Yeah, I'm glad we got that one reset because the other 14 seconds I'll just get rid of because that's just, it wasn't right. And again, this is a work in progress. But yeah, and of course, this is dedicated to the USS Hewitt, which I do always have my hat up here. Here's the Hewitt Towers, and then I've got the old Corey Station one back here as well. That was from my C school.
You don't have your Mount Whitney?
No, I don't know why I don't have that one. I think I need to find one. I do have like a golf pullover, and it has Mount Whitney. It says veteran. But yeah, I bought that years afterwards. But I need to get a Mount Whitney one in there. Yes, you're exactly right. And that's
I don't have my hat staged or anything, but
yeah,
we are in my plaque room. So I got my shooting stuff and any Navy pictures I have, kind of like boot camp graduation and some school graduations up there.
Oh, that's awesome. Yep. I have those as well. I was looking for the actual shellback certificate, and I don't have that. I've got the small little card.
That's all I've got too. I've got it right up there. And actually, I blew it up. I don't know if you can.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Right here. This was the Hewitt, and that was the England. So
okay. That's awesome.
I just blew up the card, and I don't know what happened to the certificate either. But I had the card. I just blew it up and photocopied it, and I laminated it. And yeah, because the further you are removed from that, the more you want to get back to it or remember it. Because
exactly. Well, I was going to say, let me introduce yourself. Oh, I'll introduce you. You're Rob Gage, one of my good friends from the USS Hewitt. If you want to just introduce yourself and tell me a little more about who you are.
Yeah, my name is Rob Gage. I knew Pat on the Hewitt. Hewitt was my second ship. I joined the Navy in January 1987 and became a sonar tech. And my first ship was the USS England, and my second ship was the Hewitt. And then I went to Seaface Security in Yokosuka, Japan for 3 years. That was my shore duty before I got out. So I did almost 9 years altogether, re-enlisted once. And since then, I've been got hired on with the Postal Service in 1997, and I've been there for 28 years now. So
that's great.
Currently,
it carries all that retirement carries over, right? From
yes. So actually, what they call it, you can buy your time back. So it's all federal retirement. So anybody in the federal government, FBI, it doesn't matter what you do in the federal government, you can buy your military time back, and it counts towards your service. And that's what I did. It was worth it because really I have 37 years.
Wow.
So that all goes. I get a pension, but it's not like a military pension. It'll probably end up maybe 38% of my high 3 average. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's good. Well, I mean, this is better than nothing. So that.
Oh yeah, I mean, that helps. Oh yeah, it's not bad at all. I mean, I can't complain. There's not many jobs that have a pension anymore. So.
Exactly. And are you thinking about retirement in the coming years? What are you thinking about for retirement?
I can retire now. In fact, I just got some retirement paperwork in the mail yesterday. It's right here.
Oh, great.
Where they basically spelled out what I would get if I did retire now. It's tempting. But I would say probably before I'm 60, I'm
Okay.
57 now, so I'm thinking maybe before I hit 60, I'd like to go.
Oh, great. And I'm 55. I'm thinking about the same thing. Give me 5 more years. And the nice thing is the company I'm with now, they offer a sabbatical after 5 years. So that would, I just started with them back in March. So that would put me at 5 years at my 60th birthday. I'll take that 1 month off and just figure out what I want to do. And I would probably work further on if I'm in the right position and have the right team. Because right now I'm a technology manager, and it's great.
Yeah.
I love the team, and it's not, as a technology manager, I don't have to, keep up with the kids, but I kind of leading the kids anyways right now, which is great because
Yeah.
I don't have to put hands on keyboards and code. I have to kind of direct them in exactly how to resolve problems, and they can think for themselves, and they're getting there. But it's definitely fun, and there's a bit of a work difference or work mentality, but I because I've been working for so many years, it's just you get up, you grind, and you come home and you take it easy. But now I'm getting to the point where I write, and I just try to stay active that way. And I'm hoping that when I turn 60, I can continue to write, and maybe that'll help. So,
I would think.
Yeah. So I was going to use, we're sonar tech. And of course the Navy has two different types of sonar tech, submarines and surface. I did have the opportunity when I went through boot camp. I didn't make the physical qualifications to be a diver. So they put me in apprenticeship training. And through apprenticeship training, they said, if you're the top of your top 6 people in that class, you can get a chance to change your rate. And I really didn't want to go out to the fleet as a bosun's mate. It didn't sound great to me. Yeah. So I was number 2 in the class. Number 1 had small boats. He didn't want to give that up. So I was default number 1. So I had electronic warfare, but also there was sonar tech surface. And the only thing about sonar tech surface was it wasn't advanced electronics, and electronic warfare was. So I chose that. But so after, where did you go for boot camp?
San Diego.
Okay. Oh, great. Yeah, we had Rob Clements on for the first podcast, and he went to San Diego as well.
Yep. I was there in January through March of '87. It was cold. You don't think of San Diego as being cold, but when you're marching around at 3 a.m, it's kind of cold.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and same thing. I was in Orlando in August, which was very hot and humid and just miserable. So not fun. But then I can see the dog kind of going a little crazy over here, so I might have to go on mute if I do. Problem. I mean, but this video, it's nice because it does kind of cut out that lull. But so after boot camp, where was A school for you?
It was in San Diego.
Okay.
It's still there. Fleet ASW Training Center is in San Diego, like right at Point Loma. Used to be right across the street from old NTC, if you knew where that is. The Naval Training Center, which was where RTC was, boot camp.
Okay.
It's all closed down now. It's gone, but the ASW base is still there.
Okay. Point Loma. Oh, nice.
I just went to A school because I joined the Navy on a 3x3. So when I first signed up, I didn't want to commit to 6 years. I was offered sonar tech right away. I did well on my ASVABs. So they actually wanted me to take the nuke test. And I did take the nuke test, but I didn't pass it. I didn't do well enough on it to get in, which I was kind of happy about. I didn't really want to do that, but they were kind of really pushing me for that. I'm like, I didn't really want it, but they did offer me. I didn't know anything about anything back then, and sonar tech sounded cool, so I signed up for 3 years active, 3 years reserve. So I was only supposed to, and so you don't get C school out of that. So I wasn't a button third. Most of the sonar techs that go to the fleet end up going as third classes. So I went as a seaman. I got to my first ship as a seaman recruit.
Oh, wow.
6 months in the Navy. Yeah. I was right at 6 months. I put on Seaman Apprentice right after I got on board. Um,
Okay.
but it was hard to make third. I spent almost the entire 2.5 years on my first ship. I made third class the month I left.
Wow.
That's how long
Okay.
it took to make third. I took the test 3 times. I passed it each time, P&A. The
Hmm.
third time I made first increment, which means that you put it on first day, you get paid the first day.
Yes.
So that was because I studied my butt off, and I really, because we had 2 other seamen in my division that were 4-year seamen. They never made third class. It was that hard to make third because there were so many push buttons. The third class was flooded. So it was hard to
Yes.
make. So I came to the Hewitt as a third class, having just made it. But I'd been in the
Right.
fleet for 2.5 years at that point.
Wow. And
Yeah.
so where was the England stationed at?
Stationed out of San Diego, 32nd
Okay.
Street. Yeah. So actually, I met it after A school. I met it in the yards in Long Beach.
Okay.
So, which was kind of cool. I wasn't upset about that because when I joined the Navy, I was living in San Pedro, California, which
Hmm.
was just across the Terminal Island Bridge, 10 minutes
Hmm.
away, where I could go sleep in my old bedroom
Oh, wow.
at my dad's house. So I was driving home every day for the first few months I was on board. If I didn't have duty, sleeping in my old bed.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That
So,
works.
but being in the yard sucks. I mean, the very first thing I did was they handed me a needle gun, get to
Yeah.
work, chip and paint. And they
Hmm.
put me on a tiger team in the engine room, just cleaning the engine. It was just all filthy work. Had nothing to do with being a sonar tech. I didn't learn anything about being a sonar tech for the first several months because you're in the yards. And if you've ever been in the yards, that's what it's like.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I've been in the yards a couple times. I was on the towers
Yeah.
1 year on the towers before it got decommissioned. And we did go into the yards just temporarily. I think it was in the wintertime. It wasn't bad, but at the end of my time, I did spend a couple months in the yards in Norfolk, and because we were expanding our berthing for to take on women onto the ship because they were
Mm,
changing the
okay.
combat ships at that time. But
Right.
yeah,
Right.
so once the and what type of ship was the England?
It was a Leahy class cruiser,
Okay. Oh, nice.
CG-2 guided missile cruiser.
Hmm.
We
And that
had
wasn't nuclear, right? It was not a nuclear ship.
it was not a CGN. It was a steam ship. So we had boilers on board. They weren't gas turbine. They were boilers. So we were one of the old steamships. And yeah, Hewitt was gas turbine, but no, this was just
Yep.
so we had ETs and MMs. Had two engine rooms and 2 fire rooms. Big
Hmm.
ship, I guess. Bigger than the Hewitt a little bit.
Right.
420 crew members,
Hmm.
something like. But it
Absolutely.
was already an old ship when I got there. It was commissioned in '63.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it
Yeah.
decommissioned in 94, I think.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because the Towers was Adams class and it was a lot smaller. It was smaller than the Hewitt, so it was the opposite for me.
Yeah.
And that decommissioned. It was commissioned in 1966, I believe, and then decommissioned in '90
Okay.
when I got off of it. So yeah,
When I
it was
first,
tiny.
yeah, when I first arrived on the England, one of the guys that showed me around, it was fellow summer tech, had come from the Towers. So he was, I guess that would have been before your time because he would have
Yes.
been there 85 or so, 85 to 87 maybe. He
Hmm.
was there. But him and another guy were both from the Towers, and another guy was from the Cochrane.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
all on my ship and my divisions. They all kind of were there at the same time, so they knew a lot about Japan. Um, so
Is
they
that
obviously.
how they talked you into going to Japan? How did you decide?
Um, to be honest, yeah, it was probably Westpac, my first Westpac. So we went to 6-month deployment, Persian Gulf, and of course we hit the typical ports. We did not hit Japan though. We
Hmm.
hit the Philippines, of course, Hawaii, Hong Kong, Singapore, Persian Gulf, Bahrain, Oman, and Thailand. But just hearing a lot of stories about Westpac and what it was like just living over there, and man, especially after spending time in PI, I was like, I want to go back. So how can
Okay.
I get back? and I was coming up. I knew I had a bargaining chip because I was coming up on into my enlistment, at 3 years.
Hmm.
I still had like 6 months after that deployment, but I'm like, I knew I was going to reenlist. So I had to gamble, I could either reenlist for a school, or I could
Yeah.
pick ship I want to go to. So I actually tried to get a ship out of the Philippines, but I couldn't get to stare it. That was really the only ship at the time.
Right.
Uh, and then they gave me orders to the Ollendorf, which had
Mm.
been in Japan. And actually, I accepted those orders, but then I found out the Ollendorf was leaving Japan like
Yep.
soon. And I'm like, well, if I take those orders, I'm just coming right back. So I said, oh, I don't want those. I renegotiated. And then we have another ship, the Hewitt, which is transferring to Japan. So right around the time I think the Ollendorf left. And I'm like, all right, I'll take it, and that's what I ended up doing. And
So did you go to Japan on the Hewitt, or did you fly over?
I wrote it over. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I reported on board at the end of June, 1990. And then I
Yep.
think we got underway on our way to Japan. I think it was August, sorry,
Hmm.
whatever day that Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. The
Okay.
day we got underway was a day that we left to head to Japan. And my old ship, the England, was the only ship in the Persian Gulf at that time when that happened. And
Oh
they were
wow.
at, I hear stories from guys that I still knew that were on the England after I left. They went to GQ for like 48 hours. They were, because they didn't know, all hell was going to break loose. They're the only ship in the Gulf. There's no carrier there, nothing. One cruiser in the Gulf,
Wow.
and they're it. So
That's amazing.
yeah.
Yeah, that was so yeah, I was on the pier when the Hewitt pulled in. So that was where I was.
Remember all the protesters?
Oh yeah, yeah. I was actually in the middle of the protesters once. They said, "Hey, you got to get off base before we lock the gates. There's going to be a protest." And I was heading up. I think they've had quite a few protests over there, and
Oh yeah,
and their
yeah.
protests were different because I remember they were marching down the street, and the Japanese police all had them like they were lined up on the sides of the road, and then they kind of funneled them together and they marched with them, and then they encircled them, like just kind of surrounded them as they continued to march. And of course I noticed that the protesters had helmets on, and
Um,
occasionally the Japanese cops would crack them in the head just to test out their helmets. They worked. But I and then I was like kind of walking along the sidewalk as they were marching. I didn't feel in danger at all, just because there were so many police and they had them
mm,
in such well controlled environment. I turned around and looked, and all the Marines were kind of lined up on the other side of the fence, and I'm in between the Marines and the protesters. I was like, yeah, this might not be a great place to stand, but I made it to the train station. I didn't get locked in Yokosuka that day, so
anytime I
always
think a new ship got transferred there, they had those
hmm.
protesters. And
Yep.
I just remember on the water, they were like floating in inner tubes and
Yeah,
whatnot. Saying, Hewitt, go home. And I'm like, wow, this is our welcome. I was a little leery at first. I'm like, this is because that was my first experience. I'd never been to Japan, first
yep,
time. I'm like, oh, they don't like us here, So
yeah,
I was
yeah.
a little leery at first, but
Just a fringe faction. They really didn't come across, and it was. I think that's what I didn't notice that. I don't think they protested outside the gate. Of course, they would always protest, and I think that time was another time that they were protesting us. They always did. But yeah, I remember they were out in the water. I forgot about that. But that was
yeah,
the thing. Once you guys got on, I was talking to some of the guys, and they wanted to go to circus in Yokohama, and I was like, "You're not
yeah.
going to circus in Yokohama. We're going to Roppongi." So I don't know if you were with me or not, but I did go to. We took some guys up to Roppongi, and we hit the Nusano first. Got good
Mhm.
and drunk there, and then
Yeah.
over to Roppongi. We went to Java Jive. That was the place I always hung
I
out
remember
at.
that place. Yeah, yeah. No, I don't know if there was anyone in my division that had been to Japan before. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I probably learned it, the old fashioned way, just getting out there and going. It didn't take long.
Yeah.
I do remember going to circus in Yokohama. And then, of course, well, Roppongi was always pretty much, you're either back on the train by midnight or you're spending the night. So
Yep.
a lot of long nights. And luckily the bars there stayed open till, 5 a.m.
Yeah.
on the weekends.
Yeah. I think even that night, we missed a train coming back. Oops. And I ended up calling one of my friends who they lived in Shinagawa. So we were able to crash on their place and and that was cool. So that was their first night in Japan. We missed a train, and at least I was able to call in a favor from a friend. So
were those all EWs you were with?
No.
Oh.
No, I think we had some ETs, some DSs, just anybody from the electronics division. And of course, I don't remember the damn division name. I have the cruise book. I can go back through there.
CSE or something? CSW?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was CSE. It's got to be. I know. I'll pull up the damn book later.
I got it right.
There you go. That's it. I've got the same one.
I brought it to the reunion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's CSE.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's one of the ETs, DSs, EWs. Yeah.
Yep, that's it. There we go. Yeah, I saw a ham right there. So, and green. So I got to get a hold of Don Green.
I'm gonna turn the light on because it's a little dark in here. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, there he is. Yeah, Don Green. Oh. Anyway, I was looking through on Sunday to kind of refresh my memory.
Right.
Stuff,
I know. Yeah, it's pretty good. And I'm just going to kind of make my rounds through and pretty much give all these guys a call and, just kind of get their stories and what they've, had what they learned and their experience on the Hewitt. Because out of all the ships I was on, I think the Hewitt was probably the best for me. The Towers was really good, but of course the Mount Whitney, not great because I wrote the book about it. But there is my old chief from the Mount Whitney. I need to give him a call. And there is an EW that I worked with as well. I want to get his story because when I got on the Mount Whitney, he was an E3, like you were talking about. He didn't go to C school, so he wasn't that push button third class like I was. And of course, I spent 2 years in Japan, and then I go to the Mount Whitney. And
or you went back to school, huh?
Yeah, I went back to school, and that was the odd thing was that when I was in school for C school, I was one of the only people that had my surface warfare. So I kind of stood out, but I did really well in school and I enjoyed it. But then they sent me to the East Coast, which was pretty bad. So, but you did shore duty in Japan as well, right?
Yes. CFA. Yep. CFA Security did 3 years there. Yeah.
Okay. And then what was CFA?
Base police, military police.
Okay. Gotcha.
So CFA is the Commander Fleet Activities Yokosuka. That's the base, but I was at security for CFA. So we were the base police, drove around police cars. Mm-hmm. We were base police. Yeah. Not just base, but off base. I don't know how much experience you had with them. But we patrolled the Haunch. And then we had a detachment in Nagishi in Yokohama, which was where I ended up eventually. But up there, you patrolled the base, and then you had to go up to Roppongi or Tokyo. Anytime an American service member was involved in something, we had to respond. So we went up to Tokyo a lot, mostly to pick up the service member, bring it back, when I was ready to get off the Hewitt, I still had a lot of time left because I just re-enlisted. And for a sonar tech, there really wasn't much in Japan for sonar tech. Everything was back in San Diego, where our training base was. And so if I wanted to stay in Japan, I had to take something that they offered there. And I really wanted to stay. Had at that time been there for almost 2 years. And I'm like, I love the place. And I was like, I want to stay. So orders, security, pretty much anybody who can. And most people that take those orders, that they just want to stay in Japan, Right. So, and it was good duty though. it was like after living on a ship. I mean, I literally lived on the ship for 4.5 years. I didn't have my own place
Mhm.
until just before I got to security. And then me and I don't know if you remember Sean Jeter.
Oh yeah.
Him and I went and found a place off base. He was still on the ship, but I knew I was going to shore duty, and we rented a place over in near Hayama. It was actually called Ashina, but on the opposite side of the Miura Peninsula,
Mhm.
right by the beach, 5 minutes from the beach. And so I lived there for 3.5 years. It was like almost like being a civilian again. So it was a nice change from living on a ship. Just even though the house was tiny, a lot of bugs, you know,
Yeah.
it always felt whatever temperature it was outside, it felt like it inside. It was either hot in the
Right.
summer, cold in the winter. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was home to me, and I loved it, So
Oh, that's great. So what kind of when you were on base and you were as a police officer, what did you experience? What were some of the, like you said, you went up to Roppongi to do some pickups. Like what were some of the things that you saw as a just
well,
security for this base?
yeah, most of the time, only time off base. I mean, if you're working, a graveyard shift, it's pretty much fights. Fights in the haunch or destruction of property. A lot of that you get drunk sailors that are breaking bar signs. I guess the haunch isn't quite the same as it used to be, if it even exists really anymore.
Okay.
From what I've heard from people that have been there recently, but
Wow.
then there was tons of bars, and especially when the fleet was in, or you had especially when the carrier was there, whatever carrier, Midway or Independence, when they're in port, yeah, you were busy on the weekends out there. Just mostly fights, and destruction of property was the main things. Um, there was nothing ever really too serious that I was involved in. I know that I think there was a shooting once, but it was in Sasebo, and we had to transport the guy back up to Yokosuka. And there was a guy that they stole a gun from a ship or something, but I wasn't involved in it. But it was like it happened when I was there. We was able to wrestle the guy and get the gun out of his hand. But for the most part, a lot of domestic disputes too, which aren't fun. Typical
Right.
stuff you deal with here, but at least the gun aspect of it, you rarely worried about that because
Hmm.
not approaching people thinking they're armed. We weren't armed either, except for shotguns we had in the trunk of our car. They gave us a PR-24, which is basically a nightstick with a handle.
Yeah.
He's trained us in that, and a shotgun in the trunk. The only person that had a 45, it was a 1911 45, is the section commander at the desk on duty. So basically, a watch commander, whoever's in charge, is the only person they gave a 45 to. Everyone else had shotguns in the trunk, and I know that's different at other agencies, but there in Japan, I guess really Japanese did not want to see weapons off base, so they really frowned upon us. So in the trunk, yeah, you really didn't. You would, yeah, they'd probably freak out if you popped your trunk and pulled that shotgun out. It had to be something pretty serious
Oh yeah.
because the Japanese don't ever pull their weapons. It's very rare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that was one of the first experiences when I brought Junko on base, and she was just amazed with the Marines right there because of course they carry
Oh
911. I
yeah.
think they carry Berettas.
Well,
Because
Beretta's basically took over for the 1911 as the standard firearm, but we weren't issued them. We still, at least the Navy was. I had a 1911 until I got out of the Navy.
right.
That's what we used at security, 45,
Yep.
8 round magazine,
Yeah.
you know. Um,
Yeah. Same thing when I was in Australia when I was topside rover.
mhm.
I was carrying that 1911, and of course, all the girls were just like, "What? You've got a how can you carry a sidearm in Australia?" And it's like, "Well, this technically isn't Australia. This is the U.S." So, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. When you're on that ship, that's the U.S.
yeah, yeah. So, yeah, same thing with Yokosuka, and yeah, she was also amazed when I paid for dinner with American cash. She was like, "What do you? How do you use dollars? This is Japan." And she quickly got around to the like, okay, this is the way it works. But yeah, that was a bit of an experience. But yeah, that was. Yeah, in Japan, I always felt safe out in town. I never had an issue, and I'd be and I I did hear that the what was it Bumblebee that I used to always get a corn dog before I staggered across the street.
Hmm.
That was
Hmm.
always kind of my go-to place right outside the hunch. But I rarely drank out there. If I did drink, it would be on the base and then go out in town. But
Oh
really,
yeah, yeah,
I didn't do any bars.
yeah. There were some people that were regulars out there, but yeah, it was expensive. But I mean, for us, it was expensive. It was probably 500 yen a beer, maybe
Yeah,
back then. It's probably not much different, honestly.
not much different.
I don't
Yeah,
think the
yeah, it's not.
prices have changed that much
No.
um, since we were there.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say one of the times, and of course, I had shore duty occasionally. I had shore duty outside of Japan. Whenever I was in Japan, I was always a ship's driver, so I would just drive wherever they told me to. I didn't have to drive too crazy. I think I went up to the air base
Okay.
at Sugi.
Yokota,
So
yeah,
I,
that's Atsugi and Yokota. Yokota's the Air Force base. Atsugi was the Navy. Yeah.
yeah, so I would go to Atsugi, but I had to take up some officers one day. But that was about my extent of driving. But it was just driving around base, picking up the sailors from the A club and bringing them back to the ship, and
Yeah.
then I eventually became a taxi driver because I still do side gigs today. My thing's just side gigs. Besides writing, I also do. I've got Bronco Security.
Yeah.
Um, I used to do Uber and stuff, but I just it's fun because I always just like to make a little extra cash, and that's the way it was in Japan. You got to make the extra cash because, like you said, it's expensive out in town, and
It
I love
was.
to go
Yeah.
in town. But
Yeah. Yeah.
and of course, I had a girlfriend who lived with her parents. I lived on the ship. Well, you got to make it work. Well, you got the love hotel, so
Oh yeah. Exactly. Yeah. That was the one benefit of getting my own house was I always had a place.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That
Yeah, on
was
the towers, I did have one of my buddies. He was married, but then his wife didn't like Japan, so she headed back to the States. So he's
nice.
like, "Hey, crash here." So a bunch of us on the towers would just crash there, and it was in the wintertime. So, like you said, weather outside it feels the same way inside, and they had the kerosene heaters.
Oh
Remember
yeah. Yeah.
the damn kerosene things, filling those up? Yeah, that was always it was
The
always
first
chilly.
kerosene heater we had at our house. My lungs are probably still black from this thing, but it turned. We had white walls. It turned
Yeah.
them all black. Where we had to paint the house within a few months because we must have been either it was a bad heater or we were putting in the wrong kerosene. I don't know, but I was breathing that stuff every day. But we needed it.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
And those
crazy.
walls are not insulated, so that was one of those problems that people just didn't realize that. Well, I didn't realize it, but oh, that's great. So,
Yeah.
when you went down to because I remember going to the Philippines a lot. I love the
Mhm.
Philippines. Where did you go when you were in the Philippines? Where would you always go out to like Barrio, or would you say like
Well, my my first ship to England, the first we were there twice. The first time was for a week, and I don't think we left McSai. I don't even remember. I remember the FTN. Um, yeah, I think that first night we probably hit every bar down McSai.
yeah,
But so that first week we probably stayed most of the time on McSai. But then on our way out of the Gulf, we were supposed to go to Sasebo, Japan, but we cracked a boiler casing on the way out of the Gulf. And I can still remember the announcement they made over the 1MC. It was like, instead of going to Sasebo, we're going to the Philippines for 3 weeks. Everybody's like a big roar. So we limped into the Philippines on one boiler, um, and we spent 3 weeks there. So that's when I found out about the barrio. There's a place called Jack's Tavern. I don't know.
okay,
I don't remember if it was even there when we were on the Hewitt, but it was there in 1989 when we spent 3 weeks there, and we had our ship's party there. I mean,
okay,
division at that place where uh, we had a guy that was we could throw darts at him. That's where I saw my first peso show. You know,
Oh yeah, yeah,
how much detail
yeah.
I should go into that, but
We
you
could
know,
use our imaginations, although I've got firsthand experience. I know exactly what we're talking about. So
anyway, it was right on the beach, and it was fun. But on the Hewitt, I think we went to PI so many times it just became like a
Mhm.
second home that we would just as soon as you got the ship, it was just jump on a trike or a jeepney straight to Barrio. I liked the Midnight Rambler, which was kind of like at the end of the street on the
Mhm.
right. It was kind of an outdoorsy bar. Also Abracadabra. I remember Rock Lobster. Um, God, several, but yeah, I really liked Barrio.
Yeah,
Um,
I cannot remember the places. I would always go to the Barrio.
mhm,
Occasionally, I go to McSai and Alongapo, but and of course, I did. I do have a picture. Of course, I don't brandish that picture out that much. I probably did show you though
mhm.
years ago, but it had a few guys from the Hewitt, and we went all the way down to Blowhaven. Got to go to Blowhaven and Subic. So
Yeah,
few of the guys are in there. I'm sure they don't want that picture out, but hey, I
uh,
keep it quiet.
yeah.
But yeah, it was a good time, and I do have a picture. I found another one from, and I forgot where this place is, but it was Muff Divers.
Oh,
Don't
okay.
know where Muff Divers was, and it
I don't
was.
remember.
I know I saw Ham in that one, so it was a lot of the EW guys, and I think I was with the girl I met originally in with the towers. She was in there, but quickly moved on from her, found another girl. But yeah, that's the beauty of the Philippines and when we were there. And I know the sailors nowadays don't get to see that and
No,
experience the Philippines. And
I
I
told you I
feel like,
went back after the base closed, right?
did you? How was
Yeah,
that?
in November of '94.
Okay.
Still in the Navy. I was stationed in Japan at security, and I know you don't remember Darren Little, who's my
Yeah.
old room. After Sean Jeter went back to Texas, Darren moved in with me, and we decided to go on a vacation, and we ended up flying to the Philippines for a week, and we uh, we thought that Olongapo was dead, which it was. So we went to Angeles City. We
Okay.
right from the airport straight to Angeles City, which is where the Air Force Base Clark was it Clark Air Force Base? I guess
Yes.
that's what
Mark. Mhm.
there. And we spent one night there, had fun. But then, Darren actually said, you know what? I don't care what it's like. I just want to see what Olongapo's like. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, check it out. So we jumped on a bus, filled with people and their chickens. Like, I mean, if you could imagine, very rural, like people were holding
Yes.
chickens, pigs. And we took that bus to Olongapo and it dropped us off at I think it was the Victory Liner station there in McSai, and we walked around down McSai down. It was dead. I mean, there was no bars open. A lot of stuff was still boarded up. It was kind of depressing. We were
Wow.
sad. But then we're like, well, let's go check out Barrio. And we jumped on a trike, and he drove us out to Barrio. And as soon as we got there, he dropped us in front of Abracadabra, and I'm like, we opened the door, and it was happening. It was like that wasn't the only bar, but it was still happening in Barrio. But it was mostly at that time a lot of retirees,
Okay.
retired, and there was a lot of Australians there too. Um, but we were at that time, I think I was 26. Darren might have been 23 or 24, but they weren't used to seeing young sailors anymore. And needless to say, we had a good time.
Oh, of course. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's I do get those stories back from one of my friends lives over in Padia. So of course I always hear the stories from him about what it's still like now. Padia, I don't think it's ever changed.
Yeah.
And did you ever go to Thailand at all, or did you go to Phuket?
Phuket. I went to Phuket twice. Yeah.
Okay, and never
It's
Padia.
never Pattaya. Yeah. Just fortunately never came about. I left the Hewitt before the trip that they went to Pattaya. So yeah, I went to Phuket on the England and on the Hewitt both.
Wow. Yeah, I miss Phuket altogether because I flew back to the States for sea school from the Hewitt, but I flew out of Egypt. So
Oh,
I missed that way back. And of course, I missed going back over as
I
a
didn't know you
shellback.
left out of Egypt. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. I left after the second visit. Or during the second visit. So the first one we went to Hurghada. Um, was it Hurghada? Yeah, Hurghada the first time, and then Safka the second time, because Safka we were outside that destroyer tender, and I think they
Mhm.
put beer on a pier for us.
Did you ever get a chance to go to Cairo and do the tour?
No, no,
Oh,
I
dude. Uh,
did I miss it? Oh,
yeah, I mean, I went there and it was pretty much the highlight of ever being in Egypt because I climbed on the pyramids and went inside of them, went to the museum, saw King Tut. I have pictures of me standing way up on the pyramid, like they let you climb up there. They don't stop you.
wow,
Yeah,
oh wow.
all on
Yeah.
camera.
Was that the first visit or the second time we went in?
It might have been the second. Didn't we go more than twice? I don't remember, but I know it
I
was like a
think
3-day trip.
yeah,
So we
yeah.
took our bus
So
there.
yeah, the way I did it, because the first time we went in, we went scuba diving. So that was our thing. And the scuba diving was incredible in the Red
Yeah,
Sea. Loved it. But then the second time, I remember I was like, all right, we're going to the pyramids. That's it. And then I got shot down because they're like, oh, by the way, you're flying out. I'm like, oh, crap.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I couldn't go to the pyramids. And to be honest, I don't want to go back to Egypt. I probably missed the pyramids. I knocked it off my bucket list. I'm not going. So,
yeah. I don't think I would have ever gone to Egypt if it weren't for them taking us there and dropping us off. But I figured while I'm here, I might as well see it.
heck
And
yeah.
it's pretty cool. Not many people have seen it, and
Yep. Yeah.
but
Maybe, I don't know, but my big highlight in my bucket list thing, because people ask, like, what's your bucket list item? So I already saw the sunrise from the top of Mount Fuji. That's a cool sunrise, or a cool
I
bucket list
did the
item.
same thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
But
climbed it in '94.
nice.
Oh no, 95, 95. Yeah, right before I left Japan. It was July.
Hmm.
Um, did you do it? You did it at night and then saw the sunset
Yep.
and then back down after or sunrise. Yeah.
Yep. Saw the sunrise. Yeah. We climbed, I think we climbed in the afternoon. It was right before I climbed it while I was on the towers. So I was just getting off, and I was before the Hewitt. So I think it
Oh,
was like 91. So 90. Geez. Yeah, it's just getting to be a blur nowadays. I'll get there.
I know. At least I have pictures of that. I went with a Japanese friend of mine, actually, a friend that I'm still friends with. He was a security guard that I worked with at security, and he was in Nagishi in Yokohama. And I worked with him, and we ended up doing so many trips together: ski trips, hiking trips, we camping. So I got to know him and his Japanese buddies, and they'd bring me along on all these trips, and so it was cool. But he went
Yeah,
with me on that, um, and yeah. It's a good
that's
time.
right. So we went skiing with myself, I think Mark Marks, and then Rob Chapin as well, up to
Yeah,
Junko's ski condo.
that was not my first ski trip in Japan.
Yeah.
Um, I ended up going several times later, mostly with Japanese. I went a couple times with some American friends, but I went quite a bit with my Japanese friends too. And oh yeah, it's great skiing in
Yeah.
Japan. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we went to a place the first time when I was on the towers. We went to a place called Megamiko, and I went with the MWR, so that
Hmm.
was a pretty good place. And then when we went on the Hewitt, I remember we had to rent skis from the MWR, take them up there, and that was a good way of doing it, because when I went back on my own, I didn't have ski boots, so I couldn't find a size 11 for the ski boots. Same thing. I bought a motorcycle helmet up in Wayno, and they had to run down the street because I guess my noggin's too big, and find an extra large helmet for me, and it fit. And I still have the helmet downstairs, but the lining is so worn out, I can't wear it. It's just a trophy piece now because I can't give up that damn helmet I brought back from Japan.
So you were skiing back then. Did they even have snowboarding at that time?
No, no. Yeah, I
Because
don't think snowboarding was a big thing in the early 90s.
no, I remember the first time I snowboarded was in Japan in '94.
Okay.
I went with a Japanese. I went with a couple American guys and another couple Japanese that we we rented a base van and drove. I can't even remember the name of the places now, but Nagano. I think maybe it was Nagano. Yeah. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, one of them was a snowboarder, and he let me borrow his snowboard for one day. And I remember the conditions were so icy, and
Yeah.
I sucked, and I fell so many times, and it wasn't fun for me because I was like, I'm not used to falling because I'm a pretty good skier. But I did pick it up again later, but it was when there was more powder. But it was back when I came back to the States.
Oh yeah.
Now I'm
Well,
so
then,
ready.
like I said, we got to get you next winter. You'll have to come out. We'll go skiing in Breckenridge. Let me know when you come out.
Didn't
So
you say you were going to do a trip with your brother in Utah or something?
yeah, we might. Yeah, I might go to Utah because this is my off year from usually skiing in Breckenridge.
Mhm.
So I think I can do. I can do Utah. Yeah, let me figure it out. We'll set that up. So, and of course, this is a great time to discuss our ski trips. Is during a podcast. So, but that's we'll let other people sign up as well. Hey, it'll be a big party. And then of course you do next year we're having that Stu's or Stewart's retirement party. So that'll
Yeah,
be
kind of a
I think
Hewitt reunion as well, right?
yep exactly. I think we're going to have I think Hanstein has a park already set up for us out there. So
So you
and you saw
mentioned
him just recently, right?
I did. I was in San Diego the end of April. My daughter lives there, and met up with him. I hadn't seen him, I think, since 2008. We saw
Okay.
each other in Hawaii when he was stationed there. But no, it was a good time seeing him, reminiscing, talking about just our Hewitt days and what we've been doing since, and went bar hopping around North Park in San Diego. It was cool. Yeah,
Oh,
got
that's
all caught
great.
up.
Yeah, because we did the same thing back in beginning of December. Um, yeah, Stewart had a change of command,
Yeah.
so went out there for that, and there was quite a few guys. And it was only the guys from the Hewitt that showed up that were from his past, which was pretty cool. So we
I
all
didn't
just
even know
hung
about
out.
it. Yeah, I had no
I
idea.
know it was a last minute thing, and I kind of tagged along because I was trying to pimp a book. Like, hey, I gotta.
Well, I
And of
wasn't
course,
super close to Joel. I mean, he actually slept in the bunk right above me. you know,
okay,
we weren't in the same division or anything. I didn't hang out with him, but I mean, I seen him every day, usually in his
right.
skinnies. But
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I remember he was always next to me for up in CIC because
yeah,
that's where the fire control system was. And we were right up front with the EW council. And I remember when that 5-inch gun would always go off, it would just rattle the hell out of us. But yeah. And that
yeah,
was a crazy thing was that when I went through surface warfare, I had to go and see how that 5-inch gun worked. And I
oh wow,
remember I was inside of the turret when it loaded and fired and I couldn't really hear anything because they just said you don't need your earplugs because I had earplugs and earphones. They were like, take it all off, you're fine.
they're
And
crazy.
sure enough, you couldn't hear anything. It was just it was just the whine of the hydraulics, and that was it. But you heard a poof. It was so quiet because you're in such a all that
Those are
steel.
where you heard it, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Other places
I
of the
thought it was
ship.
just going to rock me, but no. Oh, that's
Wow.
great.
I never witnessed that. Never seen it from that location. That's too bad. I have a picture of me standing with that 5-inch gun. It's down. It's like right at my chest, and I'm holding my arms up like, "Don't shoot!" It was right in my chest. It just so happened to be pointing down. I don't know.
Exactly. Oh, it's funny.
That'll
Yeah, and
happen
I
some.
did see a picture recently. Somebody showed a picture from an Adams class destroyer, and I think the barrel was mushroomed out, like it blew apart.
Oh, really?
And somebody made a comment like, "Oh, the guns on our ship were much longer barrels." I really hope that guy was kidding because I looked at it, I was like, "Yeah, I don't think that's supposed to be that way. Don't worry."
No, I
Uh,
didn't see that picture. Yeah.
yeah, but it was definitely a good experience, and then so looking back at your Navy experience and what it's done for you, is it something that you do relish on? Do you cherish your memories with the Navy? I mean, is it something good memories?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I look back, I wouldn't have done anything differently. I think it pretty much made me who I am. I'd like to think that, I had this type of personality kind of anyway, I'm like, just have a sense of duty and, um, I'm accountable and dependable, and I'd like to think I had that before, but I think kind of like the Navy kind of instills that a little bit more. And no, I think I would recommend it to anybody who's not really 100% sure what they want to do with their life, because that's kind of where I was my senior year of high school. I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I got a cold call from the recruiter, um, just calling high school seniors. And I just happened to pick up the phone, and he was pitching me, and I'm like, yeah, right. At that time, I'm like, I don't want to join the military. You kidding me? No way. And when he started talking me up, like, oh man, just come meet with me. So I did, of course. And then of course he's got his cruise book out, and he's showing me
Yeah.
pictures of, this is Thailand, this is Hawaii. I'm like, dude, that looks fun. So he convinced me, he sold me on it. And yeah, the rest is history. But I mean, I'm glad I did. It was the best thing I ever did.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's the thing. I do want to talk to newer sailors, just to get their perspective and what has changed. I know I do have a new member with the VFW here in Parker, and she spent time on the Nimitz, and she spent time in the Persian Gulf as well. So I definitely want to get her perspective and what she learns, because I did ask her, like, what ports did you go to, and it sounds like they just bypassed everything in Southeast Asia and went like straight to the Persian Gulf. And they said she did a port visit in India, which I was like, really, I need to dive into that a little
Yeah.
more, because
It
we
almost like
bypassed India all the time.
It almost seems like they're so afraid of a Liberty incident that they're just like, they don't want anybody to make them look bad. I mean, we went through this somewhat, anytime there was a serious incident off base where they closed the base down or they give us a midnight curfew or that kind of thing. But I know, like, even in Japan, like recently, they'll cut off Liberty for months. Like, you
Wow.
can't leave the ship or you can't leave the base for months. Like, if there's one alcohol incident where someone's beat up or civilians beat, something like that. I know there's been a lot of stuff like that, but I just think, yeah, maybe they're just afraid of making the U.S. look bad. So it's
Yeah.
just I'm on the ship. But
Well, I think after I left, was it the Lincoln or Washington that pulled in? Who,
George
or
Washington, yeah,
it was George Washington? Because I
yeah,
think once they pulled in, they caused a lot of problems. And what I heard was that they put them, they just moved them out, anchored them out in Tokyo Bay, and left them there for a couple months.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, that was after my time, but yeah, I know those carriers. Yeah, that's why I was so glad nearly every time we pulled into the Philippines, we didn't have a carrier with us, because
Yeah.
whatever the carrier is there is just chaos. It's better when you're independent steaming. You pull in, you might be the only ship in port, or maybe one other, and yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, and that was a nice thing because, with the Hewitt, we were always by ourselves, and that
Mhm.
was nice. But yeah, with the towers, we were with the Midway battle group, and of course, the Midway was a lot smaller than
Yeah,
the
yeah,
George Washington. And luckily, when we pulled into Australia, they put us at a smaller port, like 40 miles south of Perth, and the Midway was they had Perth, and they fine, you guys stay up there. We were down in a nice little port, and we had fun. So yeah, it's definitely a good adventure. And same thing with Hong Kong. Hong Kong, we went pierside, while in the towers, we had to anchor out with everybody else, and we still, I guess, in Hong Kong, we were able to blend in a little more, and we didn't have to worry about the Midway as much. But yeah, you're right. And along a Po, you had to always go out to Barrio and try to escape a little bit. So,
yeah, yeah. I was happy that both of my Westpacks, we were independent steaming. We weren't with the battle group, so never really experienced a whole cruise with the battle group. Just
oh, you're lucky.
yeah, exactly.
That's a good thing. And then I think one of the craziest things I remember in just being in Yokosuka, and it wasn't really with the battle group or with the carrier. And I think it was because we were with Hewitt, so the Midway was already in the Persian Gulf, but there was a British ship that pulled in, and I can't remember the guy's name. He was a DS, but he came back and he was on shore patrol that night, and he had blood all over his uniform. I'm like, "Are you hurt?" And he's like, "No, it was the other guy." I was like, "Okay, good." Because yeah, those Brits love to fight.
When I spent Christmas of '88 in Bahrain, and I spent it on a British ship, the HMS Brazen, because they were in port at the same time as we were in Bahrain, and those guys love to drink. I met them at they called it ASU, we called it the Alcohol Sports Unit, whatever. But anyway, I met him at the club, and then he brought me back on the ship, me and another guy, and they can drink on the ship, on British
Wow.
ships. They have, each berthing has a refrigerator, and of course it's all British beer, which is strong. Nothing I recognized, and it was really strong. But yeah, we sat there and drank beers on the ship and just talked, and yeah, it was fun.
Oh, that's awesome.
Those
How
are
do they
cool.
do that while they're underway? Do they?
Underweight, they're limited to, I think, maybe 2 beers a day, something. They can't get drunk, but they have, that's like drinking water to them. They couldn't go a day without a couple beers, so they all have it. Yeah, they have a rationing of it, even underway.
Wow. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, I wouldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine that. Yeah, because I was trying to think, is there a way I can get the beer back to the ship when I was in the Mount Whitney when I was in Germany? But I couldn't figure out a way of. Yeah, I needed to find an officer, have the officer bring it on. Of course, they'd lock it in their stateroom, and
Yeah.
because I was able to procure a whole case of beer from a local brewery in Kiel, Germany. But that was I tried. Well, then we tried to drink it all in a park, and that didn't work either. So,
One of the better, you reminded me some of the ports you visited while you're on the East Coast, but there's not too many stateside ports that are great. But like one port that we did visit when I was on the England was Portland, the Rose Festival. So
oh,
at least I don't know if they do it anymore, but they used to have the Rose Festival every year, and one Navy ship is invited. And you
okay,
drive up the river. I think it's the Columbia River, and you park
yep,
right at the fairgrounds. You're the only ship there, and you offer tours and everything. There's people lining the pier. It looks like Australia, like from what I can imagine. They just want to meet a sailor.
yeah,
You walk off the ship. There's girls everywhere, looking
yep,
for sailors. I mean, it was unreal. I wasn't expecting to see that because there's no military there. So, like in
right.
San Diego, there's just sailors everywhere, but there's nothing around there. So that was pretty cool.
Oh
That
yeah,
was right before I left.
yeah, and because we did the same thing. We pulled into Savannah, Georgia, for St. Patrick's Day, and St. Patrick's Day was known as the second largest street festival behind Mardi Gras.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think it was like a festival that was going on for like 175 years straight. So
Mm-hmm.
it was a really good party. And same thing, we were on the Mount Whitney all by ourselves. We pulled in, and that was a pretty good party as well. And I remember they sell you a cup, and you would just go to different places, and they would fill up your cup with beer. There was a beauty salon that was pouring beer. I was like, okay, I'll take some beer from you guys. That's great.
Yeah.
So, although I think the other one that was really cool, and it was outside the States, though, it was up in Halifax, Nova Scotia.
Mm-hmm.
We pulled in there, and that was a pretty good party. But again, we kind of just blended in because Halifax was a really good sized city, and they had a big bar crawl that one day, and that's how I got out and met people.
Yeah. You're talking about having Rob Clemens on your podcast. And Rob and I didn't hang out all that much, but I was looking through my old photo albums, and like one of the last things I did on the Hewitt was we went to the Black Ship Festival in
Oh yeah,
Shimoda.
yep,
Um, and I had a bunch of pictures of that. That's where you have to wear your uniform. They have a big
yep,
parade. I don't know if you ever did it or not.
yes,
Usually it's only one ship that gets to go every year. I think it's one ship. But anyway, so Rob and I were hanging out. I remember I have some pictures of us at the beach and at this bar, just drinking and and
yeah,
whatnot. But anyway, it reminded me of like, oh, there's Rob.
yeah, yeah. I did the Black Ship Festival with the Towers, and we actually had the Fife was there with us.
Okay. Maybe
So
there
we
was
had,
another. Right. No, there's you just pretty much anchor out and like
yep,
take the Liberty boat
yeah.
somewhere.
I was one of the I think on the towers, I was a photographer.
Oh,
So because kind of what do they call it? Tiger Crew? I forgot what they called it. But whenever because we were always up in CIC anyways, all our equipment was up just on top of CIC. So that's where our shop was. And then if we ever got buzzed by a Russian bear or their surveillance aircraft or bombers, whenever they flew by, we had to go out there. Snoopy crew, that was it. I was part of the Snoopy crew, so I'd always grab the camera and they sent me to school to take pictures. So I
really?
was, yeah, I was able to
Just
take pictures, and most of the pictures I took were of Russian bears or with their those bombers that we took pictures of. But
we
I
have
always
big
take those
ones.
up to Tokyo, and I take night photos and all
Oh,
that. So
cool.
yeah,
Probably have a lot of nice pictures, huh?
absolutely. Yeah, it was pretty cool. And so I did want to talk to you just about the military. Did you do any shooting inside? Like I know we always to get qualified, we just shoot off the fantail and okay, you're qualified. Or I
Yeah,
remember
correct.
they.
I did all that. Yeah, but I earned my I earned my sharpshooter medal when I was on the England, and of course I got expert pistol when I was at security. Because we still didn't shoot much, but you should shoot more than you do on a ship.
Yeah.
Um, but I remember I was on the England, and I had been. My dad has been a competitive shooter since I was a little kid. So before I joined the Navy, when I was about 17, I started competitive shooting with him for about a year and a half. Cowboy shooting, and at that time it was called combat action. It was kind of the predecessor to USPSA, which I do now. So I started doing that for about a year and a half, and then I joined the Navy. And so I kind of thought of myself as a decent shooter, but nobody knew anything about me, going on the ship. And so I decided to go for my just go for qualifications. At certain times they shoot for ribbons. Um, and I went. I chose a 38 revolver. Probably should have took the semi-auto, but um, and they let you take 10 practice shots before the actual. I think they give you like 30 rounds, and then it's basically like 25 yards on paper, and they score you and get what you get. Well, my out of the 10 shots that I took, when they brought the paper back, only one shot was in the lower left corner. And I'm like, what the hell? And of course, it's a gunner's mate. And I'm telling him, I said, there's something wrong with these sights. I'm like, I only got one shot. There's nothing wrong with that gun. There's something wrong with you. And I'm like, oh my God, he's not going to believe me. So I aimed in the upper right hand corner on all of my shots, and I ended up getting sharpshooter with it. He comes back around
Wow.
my target, looked at me, he's like, he couldn't believe I was the same person who shot just that one in the lower left corner. But I got my sharpshooter out of that. But yeah, that's a fun story to tell. But anyway, I'm still shooting now, but I didn't get back into it again until I was 45 years old. My dad moved back here. He was living in California, moved back here. He's still doing it. He's 81, going to be 82 years old. I still shoot with him. And so I used to work crazy hours, different shift. And then I got a job pretty much the same place I'm working now, but where I had weekends off. And as soon as I got weekends off, I said, I'm going. And then that was 12 years ago. So it's progressed. And now I'm shoot pretty much one day a weekend at least. I shot tonight. It's called Tuesday Night Steel. I shoot sometimes Thursday Night Steel. It's all sorts of variations. If you see my Facebook page, you'd see some videos on there. But yeah, it's pretty much it's my main hobby, and I reload
Awesome.
and um, yeah. So we could probably do a whole show about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I remember when I came out there a couple of years ago for Colin's baseball tournament.
Right? Yeah.
Kevin and I went and shot with you. So yeah, we had a good time. And I do have an office in Phoenix, so I do have one team member that lives out there. I
Yeah.
did tell him I was like, I've got to go out and just visit. There's some other people within the office I need to see, so I'm trying to talk to the boss, like, hey, I need to go out and see my team members. So he agrees. So I think we're going to try to get that set up.
Yeah, we can go shooting or somewhere. You know,
Absolutely.
you
And
can
of
walk.
course, I do have some several other friends out there as well. I need to I'll do a book signing out there too. So
You got to sign mine because I haven't got it signed.
exactly. I'll sign your book. But I was like, I can do that. And of course, I love to expense things anyways, and just write it off of taxes at the
There you go.
end of the year. So I did a book signing in Indiana and Colorado, and it's one in Illinois, but it was really, really small. It was just my buddy and I. But we talked about books anyway. So I was like, I'm expensing the pizza. So it worked out good. So, well,
Nice.
Rob, again, thanks again for the time. I'll promote my book again, Deception Underway. It's at underwaybooks.com. That's my website. I'll sign it for you. It's cheap. And I'll send those out. So, and then of course the podcast, it's on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and I think whatever else is out there for podcasts. And the book, actually, I heard today that they're going to put my book in the library here in Parker. So
Nice.
it'll be there in a couple weeks, and I'll get it out there. But Rob,
Cool.
again, thanks so much for the time. I appreciate it. Hang on. We'll let this whole thing process. And great talking to you.
Good talking to you.
Thanks, bud.